well, they're hating on me because of my education and my experience. But nonetheless, even though they would say, oh, it's not personal, I would take it personal because I needed that person to navigate the workplace or navigate this new adventure or something in the community. And without them, right, I'm just like, okay, if it was just really touchy. So yeah, that's where it was birthed from.
Yeah, well, kudos to you for just having the audacity and the gumption to make that happen. So, and if you guys haven't got the book, you've got to get the book. Once you just hold up the book so people can see the book, you got it right there. Hold it
There,
up,
you see? You
kind of
see?
bright. Yeah, it's kind of bright. You can see it, but
Oh,
it's
there you
called.
go.
You can never have too much sex, and they can get it where on Amazon, I assume, right? Amazon,
Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Yep.
and you also have it in Spanish as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I do. It was important for me because I do interact with the Spanish culture or the Spanish speaking culture a lot. And sometimes certain words, when I'm trying to speak to them about this book, it doesn't translate as well. So I had it translated in Spanish so that they could get it, get those same nuggets how they need them where they are. And then they can share it with their family as well or friends.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's kind of dive in. Now, one thing when I went to kind of began to read your book, there's some core themes I began to extract from your book, right? One of the
Hmm.
themes I thought was self-examination as a daily discipline, right? Accountability versus blame culture. Now, I think that is so super huge. Whereas we have a lot of people pointing the fingers. I mean, we see this even more so what's going on in Washington, D.C
Hmm.
with our government. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Nobody wants to take accountability. They keep passing the buck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to pivot to a political conversation, but just to underscore the point. Emotional maturity in relationships. Wow. Oh my God. Trust me. Maturity in relationship is not dictated by age, not whatsoever, right?
No,
Not at
not at
all.
all. Not at all.
You also another thing is faith, introspection, and action. And what's even more powerful, patterns we inherit versus pattern we choose.
Right.
Very interesting. I was just on a recent podcast and we started talking about this, and I had saw a recent post on social media, and a young
Mhm.
lady had just come from her therapist, and she talked about how her therapist talked about how people actually date. Said people aren't really dating, they're in trauma patterns. They
Mm.
continue to do the same thing over and over again. They just change the name and the
Right.
location and what the person
Right.
looks like. But
Right.
emotionally speaking, they have plotted out, they have breadcrumbs of how they're going to do what they're going to do and what they're attracted to, trauma bonding, things like that, whatever else.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this stuff cannot be rectified until some
Right.
of us make the decision to
Right.
do some self work. Talk about that a little bit.
So yes, those are all great questions. So let's trauma bonding. I mean, again, it's exactly what it is, right? You both have gone through the same thing together or one point in your lives, and so that brings you together. But what it does is just creates more drama through the trauma that you're sharing. And so if both of you are unhealed, it's not going to last long. It's more of a moment thing, right? And then the patterns, like some of us, we inherit certain things from our parents, right? Certain behaviors, certain mannerisms, and if we continue to follow that pattern and put it in our lives, that's adopting that pattern. But then there are some things that we just walk in because I know a former leader used to say, there's a way that you stumble into it versus you jumping into it, feet first, both feet in. And when we start to take on those kind of behaviors, it's just not good. It's not healthy. And you mentioned something. Can you remind me of something else that you said?
Well, just saying to the whole idea, well, first of all, like Endora, she just mentioned codependency, which I'm sure falls
Yes.
on that umbrella as
Hmm.
well. Yeah. So
Right.
what is codependency? People may know what exactly what is codependency?
So what I think codependency is similar to the trauma bonding. You both are depending on you are depending on that other person to provide something for you, and you feel like you can't go on if they're not with you. Kendora may come up with something differently, but It's like if you and I were together, right? And I say, well, I can't live my life. I can't do this without Carrie. And then if Carrie just decides, you know what, I'm out of here. I can't do this. Then I feel like I can't be more effective, or I can't survive, or I can't thrive without you literally on my hip,
Mm,
and that's a bad place to be in relationships. It really, especially if you haven't done your own healing.
interesting. Yeah, I think what's really powerful as we begin to dive into the book and some of these questions is that it's interesting that none of this comes to the surface until we begin to do the work
Mm,
or we get to continue to
exactly.
resolve it. It's not that you need to date another person. It's not that the
Right.
pickings are slim. It's that there's something going on with you. You haven't done the
Right.
examination, so which is really great. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, so one of my first questions is, okay, you're right that self-examination requires brutal honesty. Okay,
Hmm.
now indulge us. What does that actually look like, and not just in theory? How are we able to be brutally honest with ourselves? I mean, your book, you mentioned the song that Michael Jackson wrote called "Man in the Mirror," right?
Hmm.
Which
Hmm.
asks people, to say, look, if there's going to be a change going to take place, it's going to start with me. I mean, how
Right.
timely is that for our discussion? Please indulge us.
So, okay, so brutal honesty is really, I mean, if anyone can stand in front of the mirror and you literally just lay your stuff out, like I'll say for the women, sometimes we tend to do this with ourselves with, let's say weight loss or something, right? It's like, okay,
Mhm.
you need to stop eating this, or you need to start working out, and all those kind of things. But brutal honesty, just in the self-examination, like, you know what, that doesn't work for you anymore. This behavior doesn't work for you anymore, or that relationship, whether it's a physical relationship, a work relationship, a friendship, and sometimes it's even in the family. Like this doesn't work for you anymore. So you need to make that change, because it's almost like when someone would get married and back in the day they tie the cans to the back of the car and it said just married. Oh,
Right?
that's supposed to be a festive things with the cans, right? But just imagine that you're getting into a relationship and all that is the drama and the baggage that you're taking into that new relationship. Like there's no way that you can really have something successful unless you look in the mirror and tell yourself, this has to stop. I got to make this change. And then instead of just saying it, now you got to act on it. Now you got to get
Mm.
people in your life that's going to speak into your life. Somebody's going to walk you through that process. It doesn't make sense for me to teach someone how to look both ways and cross the street if I don't tell them why.
But
But
wait a minute. But hold on. Wait, let me ask you something. So, how do we get to a place that we're actually being brutally honest? So, um, for instance, like you mentioned, like, oh, if you're overweight, trying to get in shape, whatever else,
Mhm.
we can kind of work out on our own, but it's kind of different when we have like a personal trainer.
Right.
And the personal trainer has a way of kind of like pushing us a little bit further than we need to go.
Hmm.
I used this analogy maybe a couple of times on my previous podcast. One time I was going through some rehabilitation because I had a knee injury with my
Hmm.
meniscus. And there are
Hmm.
certain exercises that I had to do in my rehabilitation process.
Hmm.
There was one point where I had to kind of lift my hips up and stretch my leg, but
Hmm.
I felt like I was straight in terms of what the exercise required. But it
Right.
was interesting. The physical therapist said, "No, you're crooked." And so then they said, "Why don't you move your right hip up a little bit?" Now,
Hmm.
I felt as though I was crooked now that I moved
Right.
my hip because I thought I was straight at first. The therapist, I mean, the physical therapist said, "Now you're straight."
Hmm.
I didn't feel as though I was straight. I felt I
Right.
was crooked.
Hmm.
But the outside looking in, they said, "Oh, now you're straight." So one of the things I think about in this regard is how what's healthy feels abnormal.
Right. Right.
So if something that's healthy feels abnormal, and we are prone to do what we're familiar with, how does a person get to a place where they're able to say, something, I'm not really being totally honest. What does that require to get to that place?
Well, going back because I also have a tormentis right now. So using that analogy,
Same
go,
level, right?
going back to the physical therapist is telling you exactly what you need to do.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, like you say, our crooked is straight, our straight is crooked. But if someone from the outside is giving you that direction of what you need to get healthy, to get healed, to heal that particular thing, if you ignore it because you think you know better, that's not going to work. But again, you being brutally honest, like, look, I need to listen to my physical therapist. This is not working. What I've been trying all this time is not working. Again, getting somebody in your spaces that can guide you the correct way. Don't just run to the people that you want to hear from, the things you want them to say to you. You want people to be brutally honest with you as well. And I actually did that one time. I wrote about that in this book about allowing people to be brutally honest to me. And once you can say that to yourself, and then you bring in people like your close friends that are those that are allowed to speak into your life to tell you the truth, then you can start the healing. Then you can get on the track. Then you can connect with someone or some other people, maybe multiple people in different areas that can keep you accountable, that can call you out on your mess, and that you
Accountability.
take it because a lot of times we don't want to be called out on our mess.
Well, yeah. Well,
Because it
that's true.
hurts. It hurts. Honesty sometimes hurts. And I mean, like I said, I had some friends do that for me, and it was people that I allowed to be in my inner circle to tell me the truth. And of course, a lot of them said nice things because they felt like they didn't want to be mean. But I said, no, I need to hear it because that was all part of the process of getting to where I am now. Because
Mhm.
if you can't be brutally honest, maybe somebody else can speak into your life and say, hey, you know what? That's not working. That's not working. You need to do better. And then they'll couple with you and say, "Hey, I'll show you how to get there," versus just telling you what to do and just leaving you on your own.
So was that your process that you had some people who I mean, again, so I know we're using an analogy of a physical therapist and things like that, but
Hmm.
if we apply that same analogy to this whole relationship thing and self
Hmm.
improvement, how do we get to a place to be open to hearing someone tell us that? What has something bad have to happen to us? But to go through pain. I mean, that's kind of what happened to me in terms of what I talk about the genesis of starting this particular
Yeah.
podcast.
Hmm.
But what is, I mean, what is that? I really want to make that clear so we all on the same page. How do we get to a place where we say, I need to do some self work? Let me look inward.
Well, there's something in the book that I wrote about. Pain is a great motivator.
Ah,
Pain is a serious motivator.
pain. Good old pain.
Whether whether it's physical pains, mental health pain,
Yeah,
financial pain, spiritual pain, there is nothing like pain to motivate you to
yeah.
stop doing what you're doing or to get up and move, right? And
Ah,
for me, I had, like I said, I asked friends to tell me what was what, and I hated hearing some of the stuff, but I said, you know what, that stings, it hurts. Even with my kids, they'll be brutally honest with me sometimes. And I don't want to hear it. I'm thinking I'm the perfect mom or whatever. No, I'm just playing. I'm not a perfect mom. But I'm thinking I'm on the right track. But they'll call me out. And sometimes, most of the time, they'll call me out privately. But there's times when they call me out with all of us around, and I'll be like, dang, that hurts. But at the same time, that's my trigger to get up and do it differently so that the next time I can do better. Right. But again, like I said, if anything for me, pain is a great motivator. Pain, I mean, whether it's a headache or whatever it is, some kind of backache, leg, whatever diagnosis, there's nothing like that to get you to move or to stop doing what you're doing.
look,
Yeah.
that's probably the for everybody. I've seen a few interesting comments that came here on the chat. Somebody said listening to your voice and saying it out loud, which I love. Kendor also says, I think you need to be in a mindset to accept brutal honesty. If you're not in that mindset, which is interesting, you're not going to receive the information that is being delivered to you. And Ms. Iris agreed, said absolutely. And so I think what we're sort of talking about is how do we get to that mindset? And I believe pain certainly is one way of motivating people to
But
get
I think what Iris was saying, hearing yourself say it
right.
was also a motivator. Like sometimes we don't want to admit our own whatever, right? But sitting in front of that mirror and saying, dang, that wasn't cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Dang, you need to do better or whatever the self-talk is. Um, because again, if you can't live with yourself, nobody else can.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love what Brianna Bennett says. She says, "Also take a bite of that humble pie and set that pride aside." And
Right,
so
right.
we're on with Laura A. Franklin. We're talking about you can never have too much sex, and we all need a lot of sex. Sex combination. People get all hyped and say, "What? What?
That's
What? What?"
nasty.
No, okay. So the next question is, and also we want to encourage all you guys to continue to give your comments in the chat, but we're also going to have a time about Q&A. But if you got to ask something like right away, can't wait to get to the formal Q&A, feel free to raise your electronic hand. We'll go to you, but we ask that you come on camera, though, right? So take yourself off, um, put your camera on, and we'll bring you on so you can give a comment as well. Anyway, next question. So you talk about repeating relationship cycles. How can listeners identify their own patterns? We talked earlier about this whole idea of that many people aren't dating, they're in patterns, trauma patterns, and so forth. So, how do you identify that you're in a pattern based on your book?
That's a really great question because I was in that for a while where I would constantly connect with the same folks. Part of that is because I would not change my environment. Right.
Ah,
So it's almost like if you keep doing the same thing, expecting to get a different result, it's not going to happen, right? But
yeah.
I think changing your environment, changing your expectations too. Because sometimes, just in general, we will be okay with the low-hanging fruit, like because we don't have to work for it. It's right there, it's easy access. But yeah, standing in that again, going back to what you said about the self-talk, standing in the mirror, being brutally honest, and realizing, because sometimes we don't realize that we're back in it until we're in it,
Okay.
or when we've
So
gotten out of it, and you'd be like, "Oh, dang, I did it again."
so I'm going to ask you because one thing we do on here, Urban Birds and Bees, now we keep it a buck, right? So I'm going to put myself on blast and I'm going to put you on blast, right? So
Okay.
I want you to give us some practical examples, maybe draw from some stories in your book and things like that. Give me an example of what you just said that, we continue to do the same thing over and over again. So be very specific, be very practical so we understand what it means to identify our own patterns and maybe give us a peek at something that you went through.
Yeesh. Okay.
Yeah,
Moment of
I'm kind of getting
vulnerability.
your business, but it's okay. This pocket, we're gonna help some folk here. That's what
Right,
it's all
right,
about.
right.
If we
Okay,
ain't changing
so
lives, what's the point? What's the point?
right, right, right. So there's I talk about it in the book where I had met someone on a dating app, and everything was good initially, but I call them yellow flags, no red ones. But what was
There
happening
was the one that was talking about that he was complaining about the prices of the food and
Yeah,
he had these bills
but
to pay.
prior to that, I had just kind of hung out with someone else who was the same thing, and it was the what what gets me is the conversation. That's kind of what tends to pull me in, the intellectual conversation. And I'm like, okay, good. This is good. And then you get to the next step, not the next step meaning anything physical, but just kind of like starting to hang out, right? Get to know one another. And then I'd start hearing the same phrases about how beautiful I am and we should get married and blah, blah. I'm like, it's only been a month, and it just kind of keeps happening. And then I'd say,
Homie
okay,
was trying to propose after a month.
yes,
Okay.
but again, I found out he was just looking for a place to lay his head. But those type of men kept finding me, and I had to ask myself, what was I doing now?
Mm,
But I did get the answer, and this again is a moment of vulnerability.
yes.
I prayed because I really wanted to do it differently, right? I wanted to be pursued versus the other one. But I was shown that I was the asserter because I'm an assertive person, and I would put myself in the way of a male that I was interested in.
Okay, give me an example. Give me an example.
Okay, so because even though it was on the app, let's just say some person that's actually here. If
Okay.
I'm gonna use you because I can see your face.
Right, right.
So so let's say I'm attracted to you. We've known each other probably 35 years, right? And let's
Okay.
just say for whatever reason, I'll be like, so hey, you want to go get coffee or you want to hang out and get something to eat? I heard that such and such, I'm making up that there's going to be this live band and everything. Like, if no pressure, I just want somebody to hang out with. And you'd be like, yeah, that'll be cool, whatever. We get there and then we have a good time laughing, la la, whatever. The next time I'm coming at you again, like, hey, have you seen this new movie? Be like, no, but I've been what? Because I'm paying attention because you're talking about these things. So I'm like, okay, I like that movie too. So
Right.
okay, hey, you want to go see such something? We'll meet there and we'll do this. You're like, yeah, we'll go. So that's twice,
Okay.
and then just kind of that's my pattern, right? So I'll start saying, you know what, this is going pretty good. If I just keep asserting myself and inserting myself in his way in his life, something will come of it. But whenever I have done that, it has ended in disaster. So
Okay.
that's
So
how I
let's.
got to see we're no longer asserting and inserting. We're just going to keep our regular conversation. And if he is interested, he will have to kind of show me that he's interested.
Okay. So
But that's how I ended up in that pattern.
got it. Got it. Okay. So now again, we're talking about self-examination here, ladies and
Hmm.
gentlemen, right? We're talking about you can never get too much of this sex, right? This self-examination, right? So let me ask you, just based on that example, okay, why did you, I mean, based on what you may have discovered, I assume that you got laid. Because to some degree, what you said sounds fairly harmless. Hey, it's a movie is playing, whatever else, and so forth. So while I totally believe that men should be hunters, that does seem kind of like a nice, friendly entree, considering all things considered, right? But what part of that made you not feel as though you needed to sit back and wait for him to reciprocate and initiate? Where you're now the sort of the damsel in distress, or you being in your feminine and so forth. So he certainly acquiesced to your inquiry, which is, I guess that's cool. But it kept leading down the wrong road. What did you discover why you wouldn't wait for the reciprocation?
So what did I discover? I discovered that I'm impatient. I can be impatient, but
But
also
why are you impatient? Let's talk about why you're impatient.
well, it probably, I'm honestly, I
We're
believe
not a
it goes back.
therapy session here, but I guess we kind of are to some degree. But anyway, so why were you impatient? I'm trying to get to somewhere because I think this is going to
Right.
help people. Why were you impatient? Where you
'Cause-
felt you had to take the lead? When why would you not wait for him to at least? Okay, so are you going to pick up the baton and run with it or
right,
whatever?
right. That's I've been that way since I was little. I wanted because being the youngest of nine, I had to be on top of things. I had to go, 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 and you taking too long. But that's my own impatience. But that's one of the things I learned is okay, if I can help him get there, that's what I can do. I can help him see that I'm the one or I'm the catch. I'm worth it. All those kind of things. And so, but realizing that I had to step back. And so because also I had people speaking into my life saying, hey, you need to get out there. You need to assert yourself and don't wait for the man to come and get you. Go out there and get it. So
Yeah,
that was
were
feeding
men saying this or women telling you this?
women.
I thought so.
So I was like, but no, 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 I don't want to be in people's faces and da, da, da. I didn't want to do that. But I did because I would see a good looking gentleman. It seemed like we were really on the same levels. Spiritually was never a bad. We were always pretty good spiritually. But it was the other stuff, right? But I was like, that's okay. He's gonna see who I am and how good a woman I am. It's gonna happen. But every time it ended up in disaster.
I,
Not so
I,
much disaster, but it just ended.
I just wonder if you actually saw that modeled and it wasn't just you being, that you, particularly with you were preceded by a number of brothers, and maybe you saw
Mhm.
women helping your brothers to some degree, not all of them, maybe some of them, and that sort of was some sort of subconscious behavior that you had with interesting. Right here, I think
No, I
Gail.
wasn't exposed like that, but I will say this.
Okay,
Ever since I knew what flirting was, I definitely knew how to use it. I definitely learned early how to flirt and what it could do for me. And so because I most of the time when I go after what I want, I get it. So that's why I've learned the impatience of being assertive.
gotcha. Gail Davis got jokes. She says a person who dates primarily to secure a place to live or for financial stability rather than genuine romantic interest is called a hobosexual. I never heard that one, but that's hilarious. A hobosexual, yeah. But okay, so that's interesting because I wonder, wherever that came from, whatever you discovered why you were making that decision, making that choice, and doing what you were doing, that ultimately were you were just on this hamster wheel dysfunction in terms of meeting men.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you had to do some sort of self-reflection and self-examination and so forth.
Right.
And just to put a bow on it, what did you ultimately discover? You just said because you always did it that way, and whatever else, and how did you recalibrate that?
But yes, you actually answered it. I've always done it that way. And when I recalibrated is when I really prayed and I asked the Lord to show me why do I why was I keep jumping on that hamster wheel? And again, I'm asserting myself and inserting myself in some places that I really don't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I would I would mistake just a nice smile for, oh, he's interested versus just good morning, how you doing? You know what I mean? There are still men out there who just speak because they have manners. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean he's ready to date you, type of thing. And so I had to really break that down. And again, after rereading my own book and just like, okay, this is what you need to do. Leave that alone. And again, I'm in a place, but it took me a while to get there. Like I said, we're all writing the book, and I'm in a place now. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm really
Yeah.
okay by myself. And if God decides to bless me for him to find me or we find each other, that's fine. But if not, I'm good as well.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this as well. Okay, so what part? So it's like a kind of a two-part question. We just kind
Okay.
of mash them up. Okay, in your mind, what role does forgiveness of self and others play in this whole, self-examination? Maybe, it's probably some stuff that suppressed unforgiveness, whether it be a parent, a previous relationship,
Mhm.
and what would you say? If someone wants better relationships, right? But they
Okay.
refuse to recalibrate what we're talking about, like doing this whole recalibration process, looking at things differently. What tends to happen? So you're not really addressing unforgiveness in your life. You're not really recalibrating. What's going to happen to that person
Um,
based on your experience?
so I do want to address the unforgiveness part because if you cannot forgive yourself for making mistakes, no relationship is really going to be fruitful. I mean, it really because it's going to touch everything. It's going to touch your
Mm,
friendships. It's going to touch your physical relationships, spiritually, your professional. You've got to, people have to forgive themselves for messing up and say,
right.
I screwed up. I'm gonna do better the next time or whatever it is, right? But what was the second part of your question?
Well, if people, like you said, you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, right?
Mhm.
So the people who doing aren't refusing, what tends to happen, and what's been your experience in that regard?
Well, for lack of a better term, it's just all bad. When
It's just all bad.
I mean, if I refuse, people who refuse to evolve who refuse to grow up or to mature or to try to get to that next level, it doesn't mean you're just to do better. I It's not that they can't be fruitful where they are. It's 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 a bush versus a tree.
Hmm.
It's a flower versus, a bush. Yeah, you'll come up out of the ground a little bit, few flowers, but man, if you're supposed to be a tree,
Hmm.
but you won't ever become a tree because you refuse to grow. You refuse to change and evolve and say, "Hey, you know what? I messed up." And it's just like I think I've used this analogy before with, when kids are in school and they blame the teacher for their bad grades. This teacher doesn't like me for whatever reason. It's like, no, did you study? Did you do the work? And for people who don't do the work, yeah, you can skate by a little bit, but who really wants to skate? I mean, skating really is just skating in life. Yeah, it's okay, but if you're supposed to be a tree and you're just a little flower that's barely popping up out of the ground, you are missing out on so much because you refuse to change or acknowledge and forgive, excuse me, and grow. That's, I just don't, and I know there are people, they get to a certain age and they say, well, I've reached where I'm going to reach. I don't need to go anywhere else. But what happens if you live another 25 years?
Yeah, yeah.
You still have more growing to do, more evolving to do, more people's lives to speak into. Because if you stay here, the you need to be here because life is changing, then you'll always be there, right?
What about again, looking at self-examination for yourself? Is there something, and I think you may have mentioned it in terms of unforgiveness. Was
Mhm.
there something that was crucial that kind of led to your transformation or being able to move into a better place that was centered around unforgiveness? And could you share a little bit of that with us?
Um, I can't give one thing. I think just as the pandemic really forced me to be with myself and just, I mean, like a lot of us, if you're on this podcast, you went
Good
through
old pandemic.
you went to the pandemic with us, and being because I've always been okay being by myself because I think I'm the funniest person I know.
Okay.
Um, but being here by myself forced me to really be by myself, to really just, what
Mm,
am I going to do? How are you going to change? What are you going to look like? If you make it out of the pandemic, what am I going to look like? Not physically, but what is it going to look like when you come out? So the thing was, I made it through the pandemic. Now what? Was I going to go back to 2020, 2020, 2022? Am I going to go back there? Or am I going to come out a new Laura? Am I going to have new ambitions? Am I going to have new friends? I mean, there are friends that I lost during the pandemic, not because of COVID, but just that separation happened. And just looking again, going back to my pattern in life from a little girl to now being married, going through a divorce, having five adult children. Now I'm a grandparent, and then changing jobs. All those kind of things played a role in who I was going to be moving forward.
yeah.
And I didn't want, I mean, there were some things that in certain relationships, I wish I could have kept.
Hmm.
They were holding me back. And so I had to leave them alone and so that I could get to the next level. That doesn't mean they don't care anymore or I don't care about them. It's just that some people you can't take certain people to certain levels with you.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to be left behind, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts. So let's go into chapter one of your book. Now, chapter one of your
Okay.
book, you kind of chronicled like your atlas. You talked about, from when you reached puberty, you're a huge affinity for sports. I was quite pleasantly surprised to hear that you were a big football fan. So you were a quarterback and a receiver, I think you said it was.
So
And,
yeah, in middle school, yes. In
and flag
middle
and
school,
flag.
I
Yeah.
played flag football and I was a huge tomboy.
Okay.
And I loved, my son is on here, he'll tell you. I used to show out in front of his friends. But I love football, yes, and a receiver, yes. I had good hands. Yep.
Okay, and you played a little bit of basketball, and you ran track as well. You
Hmm.
did
Hmm.
you were in the high jump, and what was it, the 4x4? What was it you were in?
I think
Uh,
back then it was probably called it was the 4x4 relay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, but then you also talk about which I thought was interesting. So, full disclosure, so Laura and I we attended the same church some years ago, right? So we're in a choir together. But you kind of wrote pretty substantively about your affinity for music and singing. And so forth. You talk about some embarrassing moments you had in the choir and things like that. And you even talked about your first heartbreak that you had where you thought the guy kind of liked you, whatever else, but it was like he was kind of intimidated by your athletic prowess, and he was there for other reasons as well. Okay, so I'm curious how talk about we talk about this whole thing in terms of self-examination. Talk about how those your early years, and maybe kind of give us a story or two in there how those early years kind of formed your way of sort of seeing the world and seeing things and navigating a certain way to ultimately we got you right here. But we kind of want you to stay within the guardrails of your youth. Kind of talk about that experience. It's kind of set the tone
Oh,
for us.
you just digging. So, okay, so
I'm
as a
digging.
kid, again, I was a huge tomboy, hung out with all my brothers. And in order to hang out with them, I had to be tough. So I learned any sport that they were playing, I was playing. And I
Right.
think where the relationship that you're talking about, I was actually 13 years old. Was I 13 or 14? I think I was 13, and he was a senior. And I just thought he was an older boy that liked me, and that we had sports in common. That's what brought us together because I'd be at track meets or basketball games all the time.
Whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. You were 13 and he was like what, 17, 18?
Yes.
Wasn't that kind of statutory rape situation? Nobody ain't saying nothing about that?
Well, I mean, again, I all my brothers were there, so everything was legit, right? Like they kept an eye on me.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a lot. But if you look in the book, I said
Wait a
that
minute,
boy was
who's
not
oldest? You
smart.
or Conrad? Who's oldest?
Oh,
You said
Conrad, I'm the baby.
you're the babe. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah. So you'll see in the book that I say that that boy was not intelligent because though he was 18, he was in the 10th grade.
Okay.
So yeah. So yeah, he had the numbers and
I think I missed that
everything.
part. I think sorry he wasn't intelligent, but I missed part. He was
Yeah.
in 10th
But
grade.
I think that's how I got involved with just hanging out with boys a lot, not just my brothers, but my brothers' friends. And then again, I had the sports, and I always want. I'm what you call, I'm very competitive, and so me if a boy came and told me you can't do this because you're a girl, I'd
Right.
have to prove them wrong, right?
Right,
So
right, right,
I'd outrun them, I'd outthrow them in football, softball, whatever it was, basketball. I would challenge, and today they'd be saying you're doing the most, but that was my thing. But that's also what then guys liked because she's a girl who can be all into the sports, then she can be ladylike.
and a pursuer.
And a pursuer, yes. So that was part of my pursuing. The sports is what allowed me to pursue, but in a on the low down, on down low.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, so now we're going to kind of we're going to leapfrog to when you got married. Now you were like in a 15, 16 year marriage. I think you said like 15 years. It was actually
Mhm.
16, but you spent some time separated, right? And this was interesting because from what the book talks about is that you were very active in leadership in church. Um, and you guys seemed like he seemed to be very committed to wanting to do God's will in terms of not divorcing. Like he kind of put his
Mhm.
foot down, so like the God hates divorce and that kind of thing. But your marriage was jacked up, and you sort of what happened. I think you talked about how you guys took different paths in terms of seeing different ministers and to go to counseling. You guys went through that for maybe like a year or two, maybe longer. I'm not sure how long it was. Um, and at some point, you came to a conclusion that you were doing the work, he wasn't doing the work, and you cut bait.
Mhm.
Talk about that journey, and again, sure, give us a little bit. I don't want to call it dirt, but give us some transparency, not just for the sense of making it provocative, but I want people to be able to listen and view this and say, "Damn, that's me. I can totally relate with that." Let's not try to be pretty here.
Right, right.
But
So what I will say
without embarrassing
because
you, but.
no, what I will say is and this is something I've said to multiple people is that we were two broken people trying to fix one another with broken tools. And what I mean by that is that in any relationship, regardless of whether it's dating, married, work related, whatever it is, if both people are not, or all involved are not on the same page or not trying to take the same path, there's always going to be that friction, right?
Right.
And so as as things as time went on, I'm trying to keep it as time went on, it was never my intention to actually divorce. The time away was more of us to discover what we fell in love for, what we got married for, get the help that we needed to talk or whatever it is, like maybe because I think some couples may feel like they can't be brutally honest to one
Wait a
another.
minute, hold on. So, if I can ask, there's no physical abuse going on, right?
Oh no, oh no, I'd
Okay,
be in
so,
jail.
so I'm just curious, what was the mindset where you believe that? Yeah, I'm sure you
Just
go to
keeping
jail.
her,
I can't
I'd be
remember.
in jail.
But wait a minute. So if there was no physical abuse, how did you think being away and separating for as long as you did would actually serve as a conduit to, a more harmonious connection, so to speak?
Well, it was compound issues, right? It didn't just we didn't just wake up one night and say, or wake up one morning and say, hey, we're going to divorce or separate.
Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of missteps, growing at different paces. Um,
What does that mean, going to
miscommunication.
different paces? What do you mean?
Huh?
That you were 5'8" and you went to 5'9" and he didn't grow at all? What do you mean? We growing different. What do you mean? Be clear, please.
Now look here. Um, so okay. No, it wasn't that. Oh, so spiritually we were growing different at different paces. And I know there is no couple that grows at the same pace spiritually. Um, but things started changing. My needs started changing spiritually that I needed, and I could literally feel God just beckoning me to study, study, study. He was like, "Hey, I'm over here. I need to spend time with you," and I kept doing that. But in the midst of having five babies at home, trying to hold down a marriage,
Now, I want to
working,
get this straight. So God was telling you to grow,
no,
but he
no,
was saying,
no.
"I want
So
to."
okay, let's spiritually.
God
God
was
wants to
saying,
spend time.
so,
God wants to spend time with us.
so God was saying, "I want you to outgrow your husband spiritually." I
No,
mean,
no,
I'm,
no,
I'm
because
trying to
I
be
don't want
clear.
nobody saying that. No, it's just that God calls us to spend quality time with Him, right?
Got it.
He's
Got it.
in the marriage, it's supposed to be God, the spouse, the children, if there are any, and then yourself, right? And so I wasn't putting God first in my marriage. I wasn't putting God first. Sometimes God would be number five because it would be the spouse, the kids, the bills, and everything else, and then God would be last. And He's like, hey.
And I assume you were having this conversation with your husband as well in terms of
Oh
what God
yeah.
was impressing upon you. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
I've had it with him and I've had it with counselors and stuff like that because I just wanted to make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to do. But just over time, it things didn't change, and I really believe that the marriage was not honoring God. And I know that God don't like mess, but He can bless mess. But I will say that again, with us both being two broken people trying to fix one another with broken tools, it just wasn't working. That's like me trying to get a Phillips screwdriver and the tip is gone and I'm trying to do it with the nub, right? It's just not going to work. And so the separation, like I was saying, the separation was for us to figure it out, get some counseling, was separated from our pastor because I didn't want the pastor to be biased, right? I wanted somebody neutral. We needed someone neutral. And so that's what we both agreed to. And then I realized probably 2 months out of being separated, I woke up on the day on my birthday and realized that we were not going to get back together. Although I did still try.
So what was he not doing that you were doing?
I will say the work, and what by that I mean when we first told our pastor at the time that we were separating, he says, "Okay, I'll guide you through this. We can meet
Okay.
together separately, and then we'll come back in 6 months, and we'll see where everybody is at, right?" And so I got my counselor. He was supposed to get his, and when we came back in 6 months, he said, "Okay." Well, we have been talking in between, but when we came back together in the 6 months,
Right.
it turns out that he didn't do the work. He didn't go to the counselor or anything like that. So, which showed me, going back to what you were saying, just take the responsibility. It takes five people to get married. It takes five people to get divorced, right? And so, and if those five aren't working together to make it work, you can't do it by yourself. Nobody can do it on their own, right? So
Yeah.
once I had made that decision, I stuck with that decision, although it was hard. because I did my own I wasn't, this book wasn't out then, but I did the self-examination even through the divorce part, right? I had to figure out what was this going to look like now? What was the family portrait going to look like? Thankfully, the older two were already grown and moved on, so to speak. And I still had the three younger ones with me, but they were 17 and 14.
Hmm.
But again, taking the responsibility for my part, my role, because I had something to do with the ending as well. Because somebody had to step out, and I was the one who stepped out, not stepped out like cheated, but like stepped out and made a decision to separate. And I had to own that. And that was hard being in the church that I had literally been in since I was in my mother's womb. And explaining to people and telling folks who really thought our marriage was perfect and saying, hey, it's not working, we separated, we're divorcing. All and some of those people are on this call. But it was really hard. But through that, again, spiritually, I definitely grew up. Professionally, I grew up. And then as a mom, I definitely grew up. Things changed, so it was a beautiful journey, although the road was ugly, if that makes any sense.
So okay,
Um,
so let me just ask some really quickly, and I mean this with all sincerity. So you guys were leaders in the church, and you would argue that you guys both love God, right?
right.
Okay. How is it that two people who are in leadership um, roles in the church both love God, you know, Bible quoting, the Bible was it the Bible, scripture quoting, Bible toting, devil stomping believers, right? Why couldn't y'all work that out?
Well, like I said before, it's another great question. Compound issues. It wasn't as simple as black and white. And in the book, I do talk about how when I was going through the divorce, some dear friends of mine had pulled me aside and said, God hates divorce. And so I'd heard that most of my life from
Wait a
other
minute,
people.
stop for a second. So we get God hates divorce and things like that.
Mhm.
Are you comfortable sharing something that was just a clear impediment to staying together? Because you said there were other factors, and so are you able to talk about any of that?
I can, but I'll say this. I'll say this. Um, the marriage was not healthy. Now, of course, it wasn't. Now there is. I want to make sure that I'm clear that there's no perfect marriage. Everybody has issues, right? But the marriage was not healthy. I will say that, and almost like if you're, because I don't want to make him look bad, even though he's not here and he may never see this. But
Totally respect that.
still want to be
Complete, totally
clear. But
respect
that's
it.
I
Yeah.
think that's the best I can say. And like I said before, it wasn't God honoring. Like God doesn't want you to be unhappy. But what I mean by that, because some people say you're happy because of happenings. It's not that. If if you're if you're dead inside and you're in a Christian marriage, those two don't go together. So how do you honor God, be a church leader, whether you're a pastor, a deacon, a Sunday school teacher, whatever it is, you're faking the funk to where it's funky now. And God doesn't want that aroma in his house. You know what I'm saying? Because really, because the kids see it, people who know you see it, and they're just waiting like, my goodness, how long are we gonna sit in this filth? You know what I'm saying? And not, I'm just trying to give an analogy, but it was time. Unfortunately, it was time, and I did grieve my marriage. I don't want people to think that I didn't, because I did grieve my marriage, because it was a part of me for so long, right? We built a family. We were a core, like you said, we were leaders in the church, and my kids were active in the church. So in my world, everybody knew us. And so to carry that around, that scarlet letter, so to speak, the D on my blouse, that was hard to shoulder that. But thankfully, I had friends and church aunties and church parent roles that really prayed me through it. I didn't get, I got some slaps on the wrist from other people, but I got mostly hugs and prayers from the other folks. And those folks, regardless, they didn't take sides. They stood in the middle and they stood with me to make sure I was all right and the kids were all right versus, oh, you shouldn't have done this, wagging the finger. And
Yeah.
that is how I got through that with a lot of prayer, a lot of reading my scripture, and then just self-examination, like looking within and saying, hey, this is why it didn't work. But the next one, because I know better now, it's gonna work. That's why I'm okay where I am by myself. Because I don't want to get into another marriage just to get into it, just to have a body, laying next to me. If that's the case, I could just, as my mom would say, ho hop. I could do that, but that's not the case, and I don't want that.
Yeah,
So
we don't want to encourage whole hopping.
no,
Basically,
right.
say no to whole hopping. So some people may think I hope I don't come across as being a little bit insensitive by sort of
Mm.
prodding you to be a little bit more transparent or more revealing in terms of what some of the things. Here's the reason why I'm doing it on one level because Earth, Birds, and Bees, and we really believe in perpetuating the family, particularly the Black community first, and then beyond. But the other part is because you're in Christ, and we'll say quickly, say, man, you got to be equally yoked. And one thing is that you both are our we look at God as our God and things like that, and whatever else. And you guys have all that, even to the degree you were leaders in the church. Yet I'm hearing you saying that you were dead on the inside and whatever else. And so one of the reasons why I want you to be a little bit more thoughtful and talkative about that, and not that we got to revisit it, but just for the sake of discussion, is to really ask those questions because, not to mention that you have grown children and your children married. Yeah, they're married.
Yes,
So
my oldest son is married.
Olson's married. So the thought is, it's like, how is it that two people who love God, yet they found no other way to go? And again, I totally would respect, I totally get it. Like a lot of people will share all the stuff with on their marriage and the other person out there to defend themselves and so forth. And so you always have to kind of like walk a tightrope. A lot of times you're talking about certain things, writing a book as well. But I would also say that I think it's crucial to be able to sort of give an account of what that landscape looks like because there are a lot of people, I imagine people in here probably desire to be married.
You said you sleep?
Come to me,
I was falling asleep. Go ahead, fall asleep. I was just saying, I finished the first one.
somebody please. uh,
I'm waiting on him to review what it's the rough draft
let's
because
see who's just
he
talking.
has to go through and to read it all. And then some of
Jeremy.
them, I didn't know how you want me to allocate it, but we ain't nowhere near.
There it is. I muted that person. Okay, I think we're good now. So anyway, as we were saying, that it's just really really important to really kind of talk about and describe that without sort of really want to be respectful of the private nature of a marriage and what kind of goes on. But that's a very public thing too. So I'm just wondering what nuggets can we provide that would sort of make sense as well. So that's one thing.
Um, Another
But,
great question. I would.
we don't have to go. We don't have to go deep into
I
it
won't go.
again.
I
But
won't go deep. I won't go too deep. I just want to let people know. I've often uh, talked to someone and say, "Hey, don't model your marriage after anyone else's marriage," because I think that's where sometimes we slip up because we think there's such a thing as a perfect marriage until there isn't. And so, what I try to tell people is, you take the good of what you saw and apply that
yeah,
because you don't see everything, but that's what I would have for people to take away from that.
mm.
You build and I've told my son this and my daughter-in-law as well. You build your marriage how you build your marriage. If you need my help, let me know. But I try not to give marital advice because mine didn't work. However, or mine didn't last. However, there are some things that I don't mind speaking to if people allow me to do so.
Oh no, no, no! You got some insight. There's a old saying. I quote it all the time. So good judgment comes from experience,
Mm.
and experience come from bad judgment. There's some insight that can be had from making mistakes and so forth. So to kind of warn people that look, there's a pothole up ahead. You want to maybe go around and don't go down that particular road. So that's what's so now that you're the sex evangelist,
Oh Lord.
aka the self-examination evangelist here. So, what are some of the things that you would recommend people to do to stay in a nice, healthy place of self examination? Talk about what that looks like for you, maybe on a daily basis, weekly
Mhm.
basis, whatever your cadence of self examination looks like. And what do you say to people? Because this is a pretty thoughtful book. You kind of put it out there.
Yeah. So maybe admit that you're not perfect. You're going to be with an imperfect person, possibly. Um, you know, do some introspection. Like, really do the true introspection. Introspection is for you, it's not for anybody else. So, when you do your own introspection, you should not come out of it blaming other people. That is the introspection is for you, right? Um, like you said, you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. And if you remember the old commercial, it was an alcoholic commercial or whatever. So my name is Ed and I'm an alcoholic, right? You remember that commercial?
Yeah, yeah.
You have to admit that I'm a human and I'm messed up in certain areas. And so doing that, to me, it changes everything, you know, and I think we just have to be willing to do that. Like we have to be willing to grow up emotionally. There are, just do, I can't think of the right term. Um, but just again, I can't say it enough. Like you said, the self-examination, the introspection, the how did I get here? Look at
You know, you know,
look
you know,
old
one of the,
patterns that got you here in the first place. And if you're still on that same road, you need to change roads. Don't turn around and go back. You need to change the road that you're on.
yeah, facts. Like, for instance, one of the things that, okay, so, before we come onto the podcast, ladies and gentlemen out there on Facebook land and here, that is here in this particular live version of our virtual podcast here, we have a little pre-meeting. And one of the things that I've sort of talked about is this whole idea. A lot of women will say, the pickings are slim, the pickings are slim, like there's all these great women that exist, and all these brothers are just busted, right? So it's kind of interesting, right? And to say the pickings are slim is to say that all these quality women exist, and all these brothers are just like toe back, right? I am rarely ever hearing, whether it be, I mean, obviously we know a lot of toxicities on social media, but
Mhm.
it's not just social media. These are constantly, I hear women say in real life that, oh my God, our options are limited. Is that right? All these phenomenal, incredible women exist, and all those brothers out here are bums. I have yet to hear in any kind of consistent way. I'm not saying I don't ever hear it, right? But do I ever hear it in some kind of consistent way? And I would encourage anyone to come their off mute and participate in this conversation because I want to kind of talk about this because we do my self-examination. I'm really hearing women talk about, something, you know, I didn't really make that guy feel such and such. Maybe my standards are too high. Maybe I'm under too reasonable. Maybe I've overinflated my value in the marketplace, or what was it? Are men really that bad and unavailable, or what's actually going on? I never hear that. I am telling you, I've had conversations because this is my space. I've had conversation with women, and I talk about certain things and whatever else, and they are so certain that the type of man that they describe wants them, and they're clear flaws. Like I'm not gonna go to someone and say you got a lot of flaws. I mean, I have flaws, right? But the thought is how other people will have flaws and completely gloss over them and would rather point the finger as if moving to another dating app is the panacea or the silver bullet to your dating woes. Or that I'm going to hop over to another race. So you think that white men are just waiting for another sister that don't want to handle her issues? They just waiting to take you in or whatever case. I mean, it's unreal. I mean,
No,
so
I mean, but
so
okay, you said a lot, but
oh, I
I
am saying
can't
a lot.
I can't speak to any race in particular, but I will speak to what you said about the slim pickings. And I think part of that is again changing your environment. Where are you looking? That's another thing. If you're always going to the same water hole, that's what you're gonna find, the same people. If you want to elevate your dating life or you want to elevate your pickings, if you want to say that, you got to get out of that same watering hole. And I don't know if anybody's on here. I want somebody to speak to this because, and I think from what the names that I can see, everybody on here is married, or most of them are married. But for
Everybody on here not married. Everybody on here not married.
most of them are the ones that I can see. I can't see everybody.
Everybody on here not married. I'm telling you, everybody on here is not married.
Okay, so I would just say for me, the pickings is slim, and what I mean by that, and y'all can drag me later, but what I mean by that is that
And
again,
this is really more, I'm really talking more about personal accountability. I'm not really talking about the landscape of dating as
mhm.
much as I'm talking about the inability to look inward, which is kind of deep to me. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. For yeah, well then go back to that. The inability for people to look inward. I think there are people that don't do it because they don't think anything's wrong with them. They don't think that they have anything to change.
Oh,
Like I'm good how I
now
am.
why would
It's
that be
not
the
me, it's
case?
them.
Why would that be the case that someone is not looking inward? They think they're fine and they're okay. Why would that be the case?
I think it's probably what they've been allowed to believe. I mean, like my favorite chapter is chapter 3. It's not it's I'm not the problem. I'm the problem and you're the problem. You know, and I took Taylor Swift's song,
Right.
Anti-Hero as part of that. And I'm the problem. We need to say I'm the problem, but a lot of people don't want to say I'm the problem. Because we don't think we're the problem. We think, well, I'm fine just the way I am. My mama said I'm the best or whatever, so there's no need for me to change. So maybe somebody's been speaking into their lives negatively, like lying basically. They've been lying to them for whatever reason. But that's it's like a kid that's grown up and all they've been told is you're the best at everything, and when they get to real life they're shattered because they realize they're not the best at everything. But I think people just have to admit, I ain't it.
So again, I want to encourage everyone, if you have a comment, a question, feel free, just raise your electronic hand. We'll bring you on.
Yes,
But
please do.
but until we get there, I remember going to a mentor of mine, professional mentor of mine.
Hmm.
And in my career, I felt as though my my peers, who we kind of got started in our profession about the same time, I was sort of stuck in this middle management role, right?
Hmm.
And some of my other peers seemed to be ascending to more executive roles. And so I was entering my third job with a different organization, kind of in that mid-level career. I'm going somewhere with this. So I went to my mentor. I said, I don't know what's going on. It seems like some other peers around me are ascending higher in their careers than I am. I wonder what's holding me back. And I was sort of thinking that we would want to play the race card because I'm black and whatever else and things like that, right? And the field that I'm in professionally is talk about slim pickings, slim pickings in terms of African American representation. So it's easy to kind of to pivot to maybe it has something to do with me being black. So this is what he said to me. He said, "This is what I want you to do." He said, "I want you to go to 5 people, your trusted friends, that you believe they have your best interests at heart. And I want you to say this to them. I want you to be honest with me. What do you think about me? What are the things that I can work on? Pros, cons. I'm giving you permission to take the gloves off and tell me what you really think of me. I'm going through a process of self improvement and self evaluation, and I really believe I have blind spots.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need you to tell me, do not take my feelings into consideration. Say the uncomfortable part. I'm giving you permission to. I won't say a word. Say go to five people. Then he said professional. He's talking about people you know, friends, things like that, not professional. He said, then I want you to go to three colleagues that you may not necessarily be friendly with and tell me what you perceive about me.
Mm-hmm.
Not what if it's true or not, what do you perceive about me based upon what you think about me when you see me, when you hear me, when you see me work. I'm giving you permission to take the gloves off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you permission to be honest with me. I do not want you to take my feelings, um, consider
Into
my feelings.
consideration. Mm-hmm.
I want you to be honest with me because this is going to help my personal self development and personal growth. That's what I did.
And so those are great because I talk about that in the book, how I'd asked some of my inner circle friends to tell me about myself. And so that shows growth, right? And if, like you said, you wanted them to take the gloves off and just hit you with it, I think that's great. I think I don't, this is your show, but Kendora's got her hand up.
Who's that? The hand up? Who's that?
Kendora.
Okay, let's bring her on. Let's see. Let's see. Go back the other way because
So yeah,
oh,
but I think that's just great because those are the people you trust. And if you let
okay.
them go
Can do
ahead.
it. Okay, so I'm gonna take. I'm actually take yourself off mute, and we also want you to come on camera, and we'll bring you on. Okay.
I don't want to be on camera. I'm actually sick.
Oh,
Um,
we'll let that slide.
so hopefully that's okay.
Yep.
But Dr. Neil, what you just said previously is what I did when I first moved here to Florida. I'm originally from California.
Okay.
Like the men in the South are, in my opinion, are very slow. They move slow, they think slow. Everything is just slow. And I struggled with that so much because like I'm from California, like we play hard, we work hard, we're constantly like moving and trying to involve ourselves, if I said that correctly. But
So you're
Southern
single. You're
man,
single. You're not
they
married. You're
just
single.
move different and it was just really hard for me to like date out here, honestly.
Okay.
So, I actually went back and asked some exes, not friends, some,
Mm.
ex-boyfriends that I've
Mhm.
had in the past. And they've all said, well, Kendora, you lack patience. Your patience is what kills it most of the time. So
That's my
I had
niece.
to readjust my patience. I had to recondition my mind. I had to recondition a lot of things because I'm no longer in California. I'm in a state that it's a lot slower here. So I had to just
Are you in
basically
the northern part or southern,
adapt.
central part, southern part? What part of Florida are you in?
Huh?
What part of Florida are you in?
I'm in Tampa.
Tampa. Okay, so that's kind of like mid central Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, this is just my opinion, black men out here are more the good-looking black men, I should say. Um were more attractive to the Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans, certain white girls. You had to the hood-looking black man dated the hood-looking black girls. I am between. So
You're a little
I
bit hood, but a
had
little bit
to
sophisticated.
honestly date outside my race when I moved to Florida.
Right. Well, did you say you're between hood and sophisticated? Would you say?
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
a woman should be able to flip-flop when need
Okay.
be.
I'm just curious. So I'm just curious. When are you hood?
Um, I don't know how to answer that. I think it just depends on the environment, like where you're at.
Okay, gotcha. somebody cut you off in traffic, the hood comes, I got you. All right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing. Um, so anyone else got comment or thoughts that they want to um
You've got some comments in the chat. Can I read one of them?
yeah, go ahead, read one. Go ahead.
So Gail Davis says, "Oh my goodness, if you are a black female over 55, yes, the pickings are slim. The men over 55 either have baby mama drama, health issues, financial issues, and or all of the above. And if a man's over 55, you don't have they don't and if they don't have themselves together, it's not going to happen. Companionship is what she's looking for, and she has been in love and been loved. And then she says, what's love got to do with it?"
I'm going to say this. I'll shout to the top of the world. The pickings are not slim. Say what you want. There are a lot of brothers out there that I know for a fact, factual, factual, factual. So, but the one thing that she talked about in terms of asking some of the exes, was interesting too. I went to my ex-wife and to my young son's mother when I talked about the kind of
Hmm.
the whole impetus. I asked them, I said, "What do you think?" And and if anybody had an incentive to dog me out, they said, "Wow, I've got permission to dog you." They
Right.
actually said some very reasonable, positive things. And I said, "Wow, so I must be a
Mm,
stand-up dude."
that's
That's what's up.
brave. I think that's very brave that both of you have asked your exes. I don't know if I would do that, but I
Yeah,
bless your heart.
I think that's a plus. I wanted to know. Okay, so look, we got about 5 minutes left. Any other questions? I just want to make. I want to honor our time as well here this
There was
evening.
one from Brianna. She said she wanted to ask how difficult it was being vulnerable, asking my peers and friends what their perception was of me. Um, it was hard for some of them, for me, because some of them I've known since I was a kid. So I figured they was gonna come with some good, witty things that I needed to hear, but they
Right.
they they socked it to me. And that I
Mm.
put that in the book as well. It was hard to hear it, but it was necessary. And once I saw that, and because again I was open for it, right? I had opened myself up to hear it, and I was prepared to take it. So that's why, even though it was a vulnerable moment, it was necessary for my growth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's an honest level of vulnerability that you
Hmm.
have to be prepared to set yourself up for to
Hmm.
receive that. As a teacher, I work in special ed, and that's one of the skills we teach our students is accepting feedback. And as an
Hmm.
adult, that is something that's still really hard for me.
Yeah.
Is to be vulnerable and accept that constructive criticism. So yeah, I was wondering what that looked like.
Okay. Thank
If it
you.
was difficult for you, um, after getting that feedback from them, if it made the relationships awkward, did it
Mm-mm.
negatively
Nothing.
affect?
I didn't feel awkward at all because again, they were
Yeah,
already close. They were in my circle anyway, so they had that permission. Like Dr. Neil was saying, take the gloves off and just let me have it, and they did.
right.
Yeah. Gail asked the question, said, "Well, where do I find good men?" Well, I'm personally not looking for good men. I got a lot of friends that are who I would deem from my vantage point. I just heard some stories, so I just want to make that clear that right now here, like, shoot, like I got a stable of dudes and stuff like that. That's not what happened. But uh, but okay, so we're going to get ready to wrap up here. Let's just another comment or thought people wanted to share. Um, so you have your book, and you also have a workbook. Oh, there's a work what's it called? A
But,
workbook,
oh, it was a devotional.
a devotional. And to talk about the
Mhm.
devotional part of your book before we get ready to wrap up here.
Yeah, so there's a 21-day devotional in the back of the book, and it's based on everything that you've already read and self-examination. There's some scripture in there also to back it up and to encourage. And because you want to write in this book, you don't want to loan that book to a friend of yours, right? You want to keep that one to yourself, because especially if you've put some deeply personal things on each day. And that's part of the growth because journaling is a huge part of growth. And that's your kind of your own therapy. And so I'm a firm believer in journaling. And it also shows you where you came from versus where you are now, the progress that you've made.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it's like a one-stop shop book that
Mhm.
so it's on here. Someone says, the doctor, can you put the information out there regarding the roadmap to, I guess, to the good sense. Oh boy, I'm about to get my boy Chris Cosby Romo here, who's a relationship matchmaker.
Dr.
And,
Neil, I
yes,
said, don't put the information out there if you ain't got the roadmap to get us to it.
I
You
said,
put,
don't put it out there.
yeah, don't put it out there.
Yeah,
Don't put it out there if you ain't got no roadmap. We need at least 2, 3 roadmaps to get to the men you talking about over there.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
I'm all I'm saying is this is that it probably okay. I'm just gonna say okay. Gotcha. I was going to say something, I'm not going to say that. But anyway, so we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on this amazing discussion with Laura Frank. This was very insightful. Don't you guys agree that Laura really dropped some great nuggets for us? Well, what information would you like to leave us with as we create the part? Uh,
Um, I would say, first of all, get the book. I
and how
think
can they find the book again?
they can find the book on Amazon.com. You can find the book on Barnes and Noble, or if you're local, you can get it from me and I can sign it. Um, I
Do you have another
think
book signing, anything like that going on?
I just had one a few weeks ago, so I've already done one. I'd be glad to do another one. Y'all want to host me? I'll be there. Just gonna let me know, because I have a full calendar. But I think if you can read this book and walk away with nothing, then the book hasn't done its job.
Mm,
There are people on this call that have actually read it, that I know because they've been communicating. And it's got some serious gems in here. I mean, it's heavy in the beginning, but that's on purpose,
yeah,
to show you my roadmap, my personal journey, my personal roadmap, and where I came out on the other side, how I came out on the other side. So I just really hope you enjoy it and share it. It's not about making any money or anything like that. It's really about just helping us to really do the self-examination, to do the work.
right.
So, and I appreciate you, Carrie. I appreciate you allowing me to be here and talk about this. And for those, again, my family that's here and friends, I really appreciate y'all being here too.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will do, thank you, Laura, for coming on. One thing that we will do, because this keeps coming up, we're going to do a future podcast and it will deal directly with, the pickings of Slim. So,
Yes.
so stay tuned for that. That's coming up very soon. That's coming up very soon. So stay tuned for that. So again, we thank everybody for joining us tonight. We have another podcast that we come on. First of all, this podcast will be posted. Um, will be podcasted. This podcast will be posted tonight, probably by before 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm not sure because you got some on the East Coast, and East Coast probably go to sleep. So in the morning, wake up, it'll be there. So we posted it. Just look up Urban Birds and Bees on YouTube. Urban Birds and Bees podcast. We'll put Urban Birds and Bees Carrie Neal. It'll all pop up. We're also going to be talking to, so this is probably next week we'll post it, but we'll be talking to Judge Kevin Ross. You guys probably seen the talk show, America's Court Judge Kevin Ross. And so we'll be talking to him too. And the name of that podcast will be Character is the Verdict. And so we'll be talking some interesting things with him. And we'll be having some in-person podcasts coming real soon. I also see that Tracy Johnson is on here, and she just had an amazing podcast with her and her mom. We talked
Oh my
about
gosh.
generational daddy issues, so that it's also on YouTube. Generational
I
daddy
loved
issues.
it. And I have her book.
Yeah, it was great. She got a great book called
Hmm.
what's called Mistrust, Dangerous Mistrust.
Hmm.
Another great book, very solid. And she has a movement called the Dadless Daughter movement that she does as well. So, and what that all looks like. So, but you should definitely look at that podcast as well. Very interesting. We ask you to like, subscribe, go to the YouTube channel. People's out. Trust me, some nuggets there. And conversation like this, it inspires other topics like the one that we just decided we're going to do in a few weeks called Are the Pickings Really Slim? So we'll have all that information out there for you guys. Okay. So anyway, thanks all one particularly on the East Coast and those what here in California for joining. Again, for Urban Birds and Bees, I'm Dr. Carrie Neal, host and moderator of Urban Birds and Bees. Thank you again. Have a great night. Okay.